welcome back to week 4 of Can ChatGPT Teach Me Japanese? Last time we finally finished the hiragana, so this week it's all about the katakana. And to commemorate this, we have a new frame-inspired Kamido Tenji shrine, which is adorned with Wisterias. Before we start, like always, let me know that I'm neither a teacher nor a linguist, so all the conclusions and impressions are a result of my own personal experience and opinion. I do try my best to look up stuff when necessary, but can't fully promise that everything is totally bias-free. So let's start with the katakana we had this week, and this would be the A series and K series, which actually were part of week 3, but I left out of the discussion because I didn't want to start a new topic in between. This is followed by the S series, the T series, the N series, the H series, the M series, the Y and R series. While we had some vocabulary this week, it wasn't much, and in the end I decided to leave it out for a reason I will elaborate later on in this video. But first things first, let's look at what issue I had this week with ChatGPT Sensei. The first issue would have been the formatting. The formatting this week was pretty fickle, for lack of a better word. It's easier to just show you. Give me a second. As you can see in the upper picture, the introduction of the new katakana is normally in tabular form. The third row, on the other hand, is often either a memory aid or shows an example for each katakana to help remember them or show pronunciation. On the other hand, on the lower picture, you can see the formatting issue I had, that something it just listed the katakana with the Romanji spelling, but I previously told ChatGPT that it should give me it in tabular form, simply because it's easier to look at and easier to read. Unfortunately, this happened more often than not this week, which was annoying, as I then needed to tell ChatGPT, please keep the original formatting, which in turn often led to other issues, like for example introducing a new katakana series we already learned like 2 days ago, or sometimes it's even start introducing hiraganas again. So yeah, which led to a whole lot of follow-up issues and did cost quite a lot of time to get everything going again like I wanted. The second issue was that ChatGPT often wanted to use grammar we never learned or never had. Let me explain that one in a bit more detail. On some days I suddenly got exercises that required me to use grammar which at that point I didn't even learn yet. Or more specifically, I didn't really learn any grammar so far at all. Now, this isn't necessarily something bad in order to learn a language and become fluent. You sometimes need to step outside of your comfort zone and be willing to accept that you won't understand everything perfectly all the time. And this is generally also referred to as comprehensible input. I hope I wrote it correctly. So let me explain to you based on an example. You are visiting your friend at their home and ask them where their cat is, and they point and say the cat is sitting on the blue chair. Now, you may understand what a cat, sitting, and chair mean and understand the words, but you don't really know what on means and the word blue means. But you are able to infer the meaning based on context clues. Now, the following weeks your friend will use the unknown word blue, for example, in other sentences. And at one point you will make the connection that blue refers to a specific color, and from there on you will understand the word and actually know its meaning. The thing though with comprehensible input is that it mostly only works, or rather works most efficiently, when you understand more of the sentence than you don't, because you still somehow need to infer the context of what is written and spoken. So essentially throwing in an exercise at me when I'm not capable of understanding anything at all is, at least in my opinion, rather counterproductive, as it may end up costing more time to solve it and may end up being frustrating rather than potentially motivating. So the third issue would be time discrepancy. That's something I already alluded to in the first video, but at the beginning of this journey, ChatGPT gave me the estimate that I would be, for example, finished with the hiragana in around 5 days, but I needed triple that time. Not voluntarily, but because ChatGPT itself landed like that. So I ended up creating an entirely new chat and asked that one why that estimate is so off. I provided the timeline of what I learned, when and how my prompt and daily lessons look like. The new chat essentially concluded that, and I will quote here, the GLPT guidelines were misunderstood as ChatGPT follows prompts word for word. Sometimes ones need to be explicitly specified, e.g. start with grammar on day 10, and because of this, ChatGPT created a rather conservative plan. The new chat then fixed this, so from week 5 on I will be using this newer version, because I needed to manually transfer over the stuff I already learned into the chat version 2.0, and I left out the vocabulary I learned so far because it would have been far too much. So that's also why I left out the vocabulary review. So like always, let's end this week's video on a positive note, and let's list what went well this week. As you can see, this week I rarely had any loading issues with ChatGPT. Often the longer the chat, the longer the process time for new input. So previously I needed to reload a page quite often, but this week it barely happened. I don't know why, but it made me happy because, again, I saved some time, and in all honesty, reloading the web page over and over again is a bit annoying. So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.